Welcome to another edition of Pittsburgh Sportsline. This is our live show, seen everywhere on Verizon 32 from Nemacolin all the way to Cranberry, Wexford, and all the points in between. And I know a lot of our fans in Bethel, they have Comcast. They tell me all the time. So thanks for watching us on Comcast 7, only in Bethel Park. We appreciate that. And Smokin' Jim's not going to be here tonight. He's one of the busiest men in the media in the Pittsburgh area. I know people may think I'm exaggerating, but not on that point. We'll let Smokin' Jim come back and tell you. But he's not going to be on our last show of 2015, because that's what this show is. So it's been a great year for us. We got a lot of big plans for next year. But I want to thank all of you for all the likes that you gave us. I forget what amount we're at, but I saw 5,062 likes, which was the most we've ever had. So keep watching us. I know thousands are watching us on TV, and we're on every Tuesday through Saturday night, 7 o'clock through 8 o'clock. And a couple people tell me they've spotted us 11 o'clock in the morning on Mondays and some other evenings too. So thanks to Dave Cable, Bethel Park, and BPTV. Make sure you like that page, BPTV, all capital letters on Facebook. If you're liking us, we're one of the reasons you should like BPTV, so we appreciate that. I'm Al Levine, the Talking Machine. We got co-host not Smokin' Jim Frazier. I keep thinking he's gone. He is, and he will be back next year. He promised me. You got Chip the Prophet Hayner, and we got John J.C. Smith here. I met him at a networking event all the way out in South Point. He was on one of our shows at Duke's, and I'm bringing him back tonight. He's been a substitute before in the NFL, and we're going to get into that a little later on. So John, he said, I'm like family, so I can call him John the same way his mother did, not with the same voice, though. So we'll get started. And we always start with what's on your mind. And I want to tell you that thanks to Skeets Lewandowski of Skeets Service Station right in Finleyville for being our sponsor on our on-location shows out there for What's on Your Mind, and we're going to have them as part of this. Skeets Service Station is helping to sponsor our last show of What's on Your Mind. Speaking of sponsors, we don't have camera people. What is this? How's Devin Shea in the control room doing it? Quit eating all that pizza and hoagie. Olive Oil's Pizzeria has been our pizza sponsor. I want to thank Frank and everybody at his establishment there. They also have two places, one in Canonsburg and one in Washington, I think on Jefferson Avenue. So check them out. And that was probably the best sausage and pepperoni pizza I'll have at the end of the year. And they mixed it up a little bit with an Italian hoagie. If you haven't tried any of their food, I have a lot of people stopping in there now, and they told me we keep going back. So it's that good, folks, and we're proud to have them as a sponsor. And speaking of what's on your mind, here's the debut of John Smith of What's on Your Mind.
Well, Alan, you know, the thing that's been on my mind here recently, it goes back in history with the National Football League and my playing days with the Oakland Raiders. And there's been a movie released recently called Concussions.
I was in it.
You were in it.
I'm in the third row.
He was a tackling dummy.
No, I was a lawyer. That's a misconception. I was a lawyer wearing a suit, and I was one of about 500 of them on the last scene when Will Smith is talking about that at the podium. And I did see myself in the promo, and like my kids told me, because, you know, kids are nice, Casey and Drew, I appreciate it. Dad, that's just the back of your head. So that's all I saw there. Yeah. I have yet to see the movie, and I heard great reviews, and I'm hoping to hear from John right now.
Well, it's a fascinating movie, and it takes me back in history to those early days of my career. And, of course, everyone here in the Pittsburgh area remembers Mike Webster and
yes.
and the great guy that he really was and his playing ability. And all of these issues about concussions that have been brought forward through this movie. And so it's been on my mind every day. And I saw it just the other day, and I thought it was a fantastic movie, and I think everyone will enjoy it. Those Steeler fans, of course, are going to enjoy all of the names they hear of from yesteryear. and the whole issue of concussions with youth league football and high school football, and right back into college football and the pros. So
Sure.
it's been on my mind.
Well, I appreciate that. That was a great opening, and it touches my belief system here too, because we've talked about it, and Chip will confirm that we've talked a lot about concussions, and different things do need to change, and we will see what happens. This may be a catalyst for it.
And I haven't seen the movie yet, but I think the thing that I found most fascinating about reading about the making of the movie is not so much that, we see these big hits, we see players get knocked out, okay? And it's not so much the actual incidents of those things happening, but the subconcussive impacts that happen on every single play, on every single snap in practice, from the time you're in Pee Wee leagues all straight up, and it's a cumulative effect of those that have the most effect. And I think that's the biggest message to be taken out of that.
You're right on target, Chip, and those concussive hits over the course of a player's career, whether they be a high school player, or a college player, or in the pros, they are very, very destructive. And so it'll be very interesting to see the National Football League's response to this movie. And
well, I think they'll hunker down like they did settling that lawsuit a little early.
Yes.
And it wasn't the right way. But here's my thought on it. If you get a concussion, or if you give a concussion, you get a concussion. And you can't immobilize the helmets. You can do what you want with all the material. Don't use it as a weapon. But how do you protect against concussions that you get from whiplash? And you're constantly being whiplashed in a sport where you just have a neck. Even if it's a 20-inch neck, there's still problems. But we're going to move on a little bit here, and we'll touch back on it a little bit. It is a hot subject, especially with the movie coming out. And a little insider report, Smokin' Jim and Jody Velasquez saw the movie on Sunday. And Smokin' Jim didn't see me in there. He thought I was the star of the movie, so he's a little delusional.
If he was with Jody, I can understand why he didn't see what was going on.
Well, thank you very much. Here we go. Chip, what's on your mind?
Thank you, Alan, and good evening, everybody. And welcome to our year-end wrap-up show. Couple of things I wanted to touch on, a couple of passings that happened, one of them literally and one of them kind of figuratively. One of basketball's great, the Clown Prince of basketball, one of the greatest players to never play in the NBA. Meadowlark Lemon passed away the other day, and I think his passing does require some note because, who hasn't heard of the Harlem Globetrotters, and how could you not think of the Harlem Globetrotters and not think of Meadowlark Lemon? Now,
Depending on your age, Chip.
well, still he was there for 22 or 23 years. Yeah. He touched a lot of generations, but I'm sorry to hear of his passing, and I just wanted to make note of that. And the figurative passing, not somebody actually passing, but somebody that passed through Pittsburgh on their way to greener pastures, was Tim Neverett, voice of the Pirates, television broadcasting since 2008, has taken the same position with his hometown Boston Red Sox, got his lifetime job opportunity.
Dream job.
Oh, yes.
And, God bless him. I enjoyed when he brought the Pirates broadcast, and I'm sure he'll do just the same for the Boston Red Sox. So, Tim Neverett, we wish you well.
No doubt about it.
So, now what's on my mind, I'm just, the weather's kind of dull and drab, and I think that's kind of sums up our sports weekend. The Penguins had started to climb out of this big, deep hole that they've gotten into and fell back into it again, slipped on a banana peel, lost again on Saturday night. We've got Chris Letang is once again being held out of games, and this is another concussion issue. He missed the last third of the season last year because of concussions. Concussed earlier this season, comes back for one game. Somebody elbows him in the head, and then now the next thing you know, he's not playing in the next game. And at what point is there some kind of retribution? And I don't mean from the players, for people doing these headshots.
Sure, league-wise.
The only way to stop that is you got to hit the players in the pocketbook. It's got to be suspensions, and you got to suspend them for more than a game or two. But, we had the Steelers who had the world in their hands, and they tripped and fell. And, they do have an outside chance of making the playoffs, even though their chances are not well because they've got to rely on Rex Ryan to save their bacon, and I don't have a lot of faith in Rex Ryan. So, thinking about that and getting into the year end, I think it's funny for all the stuff that these guys have given me about my beloved Pirates. Looks like they're going to be the only team to make the playoffs in Pittsburgh this year.
Chip, the only thing I disagree with you was that they would win the World Series. I said they would have a winning record. This is what's on my mind, actually, because when I'm watching the Steelers, all right, I'm a Steeler fan, big Steeler fan, and I'm just disappointed each week because all of their flaws, coaching, management of the team, and the players. Now, I told you how Tomlin's been provoking his guys to be thugs. He says he doesn't worry about the penalties. They're one of the least penalized teams. So I can't argue on that point. What I do argue is they'd have even less penalties, especially at bad times. The timing on their penalties are some of the worst. Although I give them some credit when they were coming back, not getting penalties, although they wanted to.
Well, I would think of it this way. If they had a few more penalties and made a lot less mental errors, it would make a big difference in the way the team performs on the field.
Well, we got a guy who played. We'll get to that.
Yeah.
But a lot of it comes from the coaching staff. It's repetition. And you teach the players the parameters that they can have. When there are no parameters, I know I'm getting too deep. Sorry to be geekish. They're not playing up to their athletic abilities because they're one of 1,600 players, each one of them, that are the best in the world. So saying that, there's parity in the league. We were there. I predicted 8-8. I'm so disappointed I was wrong because they screwed up a few games they should have won. Big Ben didn't play for 4 games. But it's been an entertaining season, and that's what I like. But the defense, you can give all the credit to the new coach, Butler, and all these things, but I still would have rather had LeBeau there with better players than they have. And that's what's on my mind. Go Steelers. Yes, we have to depend on Rex Ryan.
Yeah.
That's a frightening
I
concept.
said it with a straight face. It's very difficult. We're going to go on to our next segments, and we're going to have a new segment since John's here, and we're going to have him give a little bio of his football career, a short version, because I'll just tell you this much. I'm known as the talking machine. When he was on the On Location show, I had to shut him down. He was 3 words ahead of me. And he took it like a professional as he is. He's been on radio. He's been on TV. Without further ado, John Smith.
Well, thank you. And it is a pleasure to be back on board here and to contribute where I can to the evening's event.
Now talk about yourself. You're welcome. Thanks for blowing all these accolades our way. We appreciate it.
Well, listen, I'm an Ohio boy.
Okay.
I was born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio. I've been a Browns fan. In fact, the great Frank Ryan lived on my street. And I lived through the Jim Brown era.
Did you?
With the Cleveland Browns.
We're going to have his common-law wife on our location show at Deborah Clark.
Oh, is that
on the
right?
11th. She'll be here. She's been on our show before. She'll be back again. So she just come out with her book. So stay tuned. But,
I'm
now
sure.
We're connecting the dots.
Sure. And
hold it. How did you get here then?
well, I actually played college football at Ohio Northern University.
Okay.
I was a quarterback. I was a left-handed quarterback. And I came to realize that Al Davis, in his brilliance, every year that Ken Stabler played quarterback for the Oakland Raiders, Al Davis signed a left-handed quarterback. I did all the camp activities. I would throw the football to the wideouts, so the revolution of the football would
Was
be
the same.
consistent.
Similar. Yeah.
Yes.
Al Davis was paranoid about Stabler being injured. And
He did play a little reckless.
and he did play a little.
I know I'm understating it. Sorry
yeah.
about that. But
After practice every day. And
well, we know the exploits.
yeah, he was a beautiful guy. And this is a perfect venue to just to tell you, one of the people that I will always remember, including George Blanda from Youngwood.
Sure.
My jersey number was number 17. George had 16. My locker was right next door.
Wow.
And I can remember looking at George Blander's shoulder pads, the red ones, the old relics.
Yes.
Sure.
And I said, remember seeing them and thinking, those will be in the Hall of Fame. And they were.
They made it.
Yeah.
And speaking of the Hall of Fame, if I may interrupt for a moment,
Sure.
since you're talking about Kenny, you know, and he passed this past year, and I am a very firm believer that that man belongs in the Hall of Fame.
You can check the film.
Ditto.
He's done it a couple times.
Yeah.
And I have no argument
And
with
this
him.
is from a lifelong Steelers man, born and bred in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, there was no greater joy as a quarterback than observing Stabler to Bolitnikoff.
Oh, yes.
They ran that outcut, and it was the foundation of the offense. You couldn't stop Bolitnikoff, and you couldn't stop Stabler. He would shoot that thing out there every game, every
Any
time.
angle,
Oh yeah,
any spot.
The last
Yeah.
thing you wanted to see with 2 minutes left in the game is the Raiders with the ball in Stabler's hand.
yes,
Because
Yes.
he was, you know, you can say what you will about Elway and about Brady and all these. I watched too many games where he pulled the game out.
yeah, and it was very interesting. He was an interesting study because he really exemplified leadership and leadership by example.
Good point.
He wasn't a talker. He wasn't a trash talker, but he would step in that huddle, and you knew that huddle was his.
He commanded respect.
That's right. That's
Because
right.
he did it the old-fashioned way. He worked hard at it and earned it.
Yes, absolutely, Alan.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Well, then how'd you get
yeah.
in camp? How did you get there?
Well,
Tell us that story.
I got in camp with the Oakland Raiders because of my performance as a quarterback at Ohio Northern.
We
led
don't
the
mind
team.
about facts.
Yeah.
Now,
no,
Smoking Jim, you're filling his seat. He has a lot of fiction and
Yeah.
fact from Smoking
Yeah.
Jim's Almanac, but we're just going for the facts. So to me, if somebody's done well, just tell us.
Oh, sure. Well, I played 4 years consecutively, and we threw the football
A lot.
a lot for that era.
Sure, that was
And,
3 yards in a cloud of dust.
You betcha, Woody Hayes. And so, anyway, when I got cut by the Raiders, it became apparent to me that Stabler was going to be our quarterback
For a while.
And yeah, and so John Madden,
Did you get a degree in college?
I did, yes,
Because I can tell.
yes,
You played for Coach Madden.
I did. I
good.
played for Coach Madden. Tom Flores was there.
Really?
Yeah. I took the snaps from the great Jim Otto.
That's
Right.
fantastic.
Great question
So-
for you. Playing for Madden, and I do remember Madden on the sidelines, and I'm sure he had to get out of the game because I thought his heart was going to explode. I've never seen anybody more volatile on the sidelines.
Oh, yeah.
Was that real?
That's John. Yeah, that's John. Yeah, what you see is what you get. He was
Sure.
the very same
That's why I
same
did
in
so
practice,
well. Yeah.
or on the sideline. Yeah,
No, even in announcing, look at that, his passion.
yeah. So anyway, at Ohio Northern University, our defensive coordinator was a fellow by the name of Bob Johnson, who is from Avella.
Okay.
And Bob
Washington.
Washington.
was hired as the head football coach at Trinity High School.
Okay.
And when I left with the Oakland Raiders, I made a phone call to Chicago. The Chicago Fire of the World Football League
remember
them, yes, sir.
recruited me. They had Virgil Carter, and they wanted me to come into Chicago. And I went into Chicago, and I was there for, they had 5-day trials.
Really?
And I had 5 consecutive 5-day trials. And I thought I was going to make the team, and eventually I didn't. Virgil Carter was a good player, and but I called Bob Johnson in Washington, Pennsylvania, and I said, "Coach, I don't know what I'm going to do. I haven't really prepared for this."
Sure.
And
You thought you'd have a career.
that's right. So he was kind enough to and respected my football ability enough to say, "Why don't you come here to Washington, Pennsylvania, and coach my quarterbacks?
Really?
And you can run the 9th grade team." And I actually, this is a coincidence, I installed the Oakland Raider offense with my ninth grade team.
No way.
Oh yeah, and we.
Well, you knew it. That's why.
Oh yeah, and we were. It was a vertical game.
And how they
Yes,
did.
it was.
And we had a quarterback that could throw
lefty.
it over the top.
A lefty?
No, he was a righty, but he was.
I'm
he was
just
a,
teasing.
Yeah,
Because everything you said, you
Yeah,
got to be a lefty
yeah.
in Oakland.
Yeah.
Now you bring the offense here to Pittsburgh.
So
and it's not.
anyway, that was how I first became aware of Washington, Pennsylvania, and Cannonsburg. I remember working out. I actually was approached by the Canadian Football League, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers.
Get on. I saw
And,
you wearing that when
yeah,
I come in.
Yeah, and
We were talking to Chip, and I said, we're going to
yeah.
bring that up, but I knew
Yeah.
you would. Folks, what do you think?
yeah,
Is he
yeah.
talking more than me right now? And I'm listening.
No.
Will you please continue?
it's an interesting story.
Well,
But
I want to know a couple
Yeah.
more things. Then I'll
So,
shut you down. Don't worry.
in Winnipeg, I first met the great Dieter Brock.
You
They call him
informed
the
me about him.
Birmingham Rifle.
Yes, I
They
remember
claimed
that
he
name.
could throw a football through a car wash and have it not get wet. And
You found out it was half true.
yes. Anyway, I was in Winnipeg for a couple of years.
Really?
Yeah, I was
Did he
there.
play at the University of Washington?
Pardon?
Didn't he play at
He
the
played at Auburn. He played
Okay.
behind Pat Sullivan
Okay.
and
that's
Terry
all.
talking, Devin?
Beasley.
Sullivan was a Heisman Trophy.
That's right.
Yep.
And he transferred to Jacksonville State and played for the great Charlie Pell, who was a football coach at Alabama, and it was a wonderful thing to behold, to be around Dieter Brock. He was a great player.
I do recall that name. That name
Yeah,
sounds
yeah.
familiar.
Now,
And then
since you're on that subject, I heard you might be an author.
I am going to be
Because
an
I'm not
author.
letting you leave that
Oh
alone.
no! I have Dieter Brock and I'm flattered
Wait till you hear this.
that he has asked me to write his biography.
What an honor.
And the name of the book is The Birmingham Rifle, and we're exploring his life from as a child through his football career. You know, he finished his career with the Los Angeles Rams, and he actually took the Rams to the Chicago Bears with Buddy Ryan and that whole Buddy Ryan defense.
Yes.
He had a 46.
And Jim McMahon,
Sure.
and they played in
Another
the-
tough guy.
Oh yeah. So I can remember talking with Dieter Brock. He called me from Chicago the morning of the game.
Wow.
And it was a great call that I'll always remember. And so anyway, my life has always been football. From the days of my Charles F. Brush High School in Cleveland, my football coach, George Reiser, has been just a beautiful guy and has taught me about competing and being a quarterback. The first book he ever gave me was Bart Starr Quarterbacking.
I read that.
And
I actually read that.
Have you?
Yeah.
Every quarterback should read it.
Well, I wasn't a quarterback, but
Yeah.
in the streets I was. I played center in high school. So.
You know, in the early 60s, well, I was born in 1960, so I probably started paying attention. I was old enough to remember football probably from 65 on. But, you know, the Pittsburgh Steelers at that time were considered the lovable losers.
Yes.
They, you know, they didn't beat anybody. They beat up everybody that came into town and lost the game subsequently. But of course, my father was a Green Bay Packers fan. And one of my first memories of football in my life was the Ice Bowl, where the Packers played the Cowboys. And I rooted against the Cowboys then, and to this day, I still will.
It's in our DNA. That's all it is.
Yeah.
We don't like that America's team, but that's another story. So,
I've had a coaching career. I coached at Trinity.
Okay.
I also coached at California University, where I did a master's degree.
Nice.
I worked with the great Hal Hunter, and his son is the offensive line coach for the Indianapolis Colts. But Hal was a great influence to my coaching career. And then I went down to Gardner-Webb University, and I was the assistant head coach at Gardner-Webb. And we were 7th in the nation passing, which I'm very proud of even to this day.
I think
and
you've
I had a
inspired some
quarterback.
people.
I had a quarterback from Warner Robins by the name of Chip Stewart. And he was a 3-time All-American passer, quarterback, and Chip. Now now I know two great Chips.
Thank you.
I'm
I think
telling
he's
you.
trying to
I
get
feel
back
very
on the
humbled.
show.
Yeah,
Very
listen,
humbled.
Chip Stewart was a great player, and that got me into a position to be considered in the school and youth fundraising industry, helping football teams and schools raise funds. And I'm proud to say that in my 34 years of career in fundraising, I've helped schools and youth organizations raise in excess of $30 million.
Well, congratulations.
And that all goes for good, worthwhile
That's paying.
causes.
That's paying back what others had done for you in your development.
Yes,
and I
yes.
tell you what, that's one of the truly great things that I see in a lot of professional athletes that doesn't get recognized enough is giving back.
You betcha. You betcha. Well, I'm also doing motivational speaking. I have a company called Respectfully Yours. And
If you like what he said so far, will you give that number out?
Yeah, it's www.respectfullyyours.org. No, actually, it's .info.
Okay.
www.respectfullyyours.info. And I would be glad to help your school or organization to
Raise funds.
raise funds and also to talk about bullying,
Anti-bullying.
anti-bullying. Yes, it's,
Well, that's
it's
needed.
a huge issue.
We're going to have you on another show.
Well, there you go.
Because, like I told you, I would shut you down after a while, but I wanted
Sure.
some of the good things that you have out there. You can see even though he's from Cleveland, all right,
Hey,
he's a good guy because it doesn't matter. Like I said, I have not played for the Steelers. I didn't earn those 6 Super Bowls. I'm a fan.
Yes.
So whatever town you are, we've had kids I've interviewed on shows, and they like different teams and cities. If it's your favorite team, it's your favorite team. That's your opinion.
There you go.
So
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
how it is, and I always say, why can't we all get along? And on that note, thank you, John. We'll talk to you a little later, but we're going to bring Chip on with we got
my trivia
Chip's
time.
trivia time.
There you go.
well, I just got a little update on my phone here, and it appears
I heard
that
it.
the Philadelphia Eagles have released Chip Kelly. That's a bombshell right there.
Well, when the lights went out on his conference, I thought the show was over.
Well,
Yeah.
they gave him a lot of rope, and sometimes they give you just enough rope to hang yourself if you're not careful. And
Sure.
well, the bottom line is, if he would have won this year, they would have continued to let him do his thing. He didn't, and
There you
that's
go.
life in the NFL.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Definitely.
So,
What do you have for us,
what
Chip?
do I got for you
What's
this year?
Chip's trivia time
Okay,
about
thinking
tonight?
back, we just passed Christmas, and on Christmas Day, got me to thinking of one of the greatest games in NFL history that I remember watching. Happened on Christmas Day, 1971. And on that day, Garo Yepremian kicked a field goal in overtime, the second overtime, for the Miami Dolphins to beat the Kansas City Chiefs 27-24 at the 82.40 minute of the game. It's the longest game in NFL history.
Whoa.
And they did that on Christmas Day. So
I believe I watched the whole game.
I watched
Oh, yeah.
that game. I watched
yeah.
that game, and I know Miami was involved in another very famous playoff game that went to overtime, and it was against the San Diego Chargers. And Kellen Winslow, that was the day they started chiseling his bust for the Hall of
Oh
Fame.
yeah,
that
that
day.
was a beauty.
That was
Yeah.
incredible. Don Strock was the quarterback.
Quarterback, sure.
Because the original got knocked out. But also getting into some other forms of sport here. December 26th of 1908, and I'm sure pretty many of us remember that.
I don't. Even I don't
But,
remember.
we do a lot of reporting on boxing, but on December 26, 1908, Jack Johnson became the first African-American heavyweight champion in the history of boxing, and I feel that's something worth making note of. Now, without knowing that John, to my left, was born and raised in Cleveland, I had included these bits of trivia in my trivia segment for this evening. For when I
synchronicity
was,
of the
it's amazing how sometimes, without trying, I step in and come out smelling like a rose.
There you go.
But,
Let's see what
the
it is.
Pittsburgh Steelers are playing the Cleveland Browns on Sunday. And I think that's no mystery to anybody. And Steelers have to win if they want to have any chance of making the playoffs. And the fact of the matter is, out of the last 31 times that we've played the Cleveland Browns, we've beaten them. But that doesn't mean that that's what's going to happen this weekend. But Cleveland Browns, at one point, were the strongest and most successful team in the history of the NFL. And a couple of years that bring to mind the years of the great Otto Graham at quarterback.
Dante Lavelli, the wide receiver, his wide out. Yes.
Otto Graham on December 26, 1954, scores 3 touchdowns, passes for 3 more to lead the Browns to a 56-10 rout of the Detroit Lions in the NFL title game. And on December 26, 1955, the Browns intercept 6 passes, one of which was returned 65 yards for a touchdown by Don Paul in a 38-14 victory over the Los Angeles Rams for the NFL championship. Otto Graham for the Browns passes for 2 touchdowns, scores 2 more. It's been a long time since, Cleveland Browns had that chance to cheer for their team. As a matter of fact, their last world championship was won, I believe, in 1964, and I believe that was probably the only one that Vince Lombardi did not win in that run.
Yes.
Yeah, it was.
So because Vince won the first 2 Super Bowls, but prior to that, he had won 3 of 4 NFL titles.
Right.
So just thought I'd give a little shout out to the Cleveland Browns, even though, I've always loved to hate the Cleveland Browns, and no offense, John.
Yeah.
I met John literally an hour ago, and he and I were out there talking, and by the time Alan showed up, I'd been talking to him for 15 minutes. It felt like, we'd known each other for quite some time. So, I hold no grudges against anybody, regardless of who they played for or who they root for. They're entitled to.
Yeah. I'll tell you, I can remember the Cleveland Browns and Pittsburgh Steelers playing in the old Cleveland Stadium. And I'm telling you, that was the definition of contact sport. And most of it was in the
Stands.
In the stands.
Well, yeah, and
that bus ride, they could drink a lot of booze.
Oh yeah.
Also, the year that I remember him by his nickname, Turkey Jones Pile Drive, Terry Bradshaw.
Oh yeah.
And the stadium floor, and I believe that was also the year that the Steelers, without a starting quarterback, for lack of a better way of putting it, had 3 consecutive shutouts the next 3 weeks.
Yeah.
The defense was that good. And I also believe that may have been, I think it was either 76 or 77. I know that was not a year that we won the world title. We might have been the year that we lost to the Raiders in the AFC Championship game, where they went and beat the Vikings in the subsequent Super Bowl.
Yes.
I think it was.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and some of this stuff I just go by on memory. So yesterday we had the University of Pitt. Pitt, first time since 2009, I believe, that they had at least 8 wins in a season, and things are on the upturn for the Pitt Panthers. Bill Narduzzi is turning around a program that was apathetic at best over the last 4 or 5 years, and the Pitt Panthers played the midshipmen of Navy, one of the armed services, and pretty amazing athlete on that field. His name is, what is his name?
QB.
Keenan Reynolds. Keenan Reynolds is the quarterback for the Navy midshipmen. And this young man is an amazing athlete. In his college football career, he's done something nobody else has ever done. And subsequently, he's also a person that's never going to play it down in the NFL, believe it or not. But he scored 88 touchdowns in his college football career. And there's a man that played college football, played professional football, 88 touchdowns in a college career. Now, college careers are 4 years. Might be, well, if you get a 5th year, it's usually because you had a red shirt year.
Yes.
So 4 years,
impressive.
88 touchdowns, that's unfathomable.
Incredible.
And this is a man that's going to be defending his country,
Sure.
in very short order. So that's somebody I think needs to have their hat tipped to.
We did lose the game.
That too.
Oh, okay.
That too. So last week I brought up
yeah.
that Antonio Brown, with his performance against the Broncos the week before, 16 catches, he became the second man in NFL history to have more than 110 catches in 2 seasons in his career. Now he has become one of 2 players to have 120 receptions in a season in his career. And I stumbled across another statistic of another player who holds the NFL record for 100 catch seasons. Brandon Marshall for the New York Jets, who's had all kinds of problems with, I don't know, psychiatric problems, better way to put it. But one thing was sure about him, he could perform on the field. He's had his 6th season this year of over 1,000 catches. He has become... That's it. He's the first one. He's the first one. So consider that this pass happy NFL league. That's a pretty amazing statistic. And also, just to kind of wrap this up a little bit, I got 2 things. One is, I think, something worth noting. There's in 2002, September 25th, a Christmas gift was given to Katie Hrinda. And what was her Christmas gift? She was the first woman to play in a Division I football game when she attempts an extra point following New Mexico's touchdown in the Las Vegas Bowl. She had her kick blocked, nonetheless, but she's the first.
There you go.
So and then I always like to bring up some of the ridiculous things that I see happening in any of the major sports, and you talk about some of the fines that the commissioner of the NFL has handed out to some players. And, it kind of makes you scratch your head. And you've got people like Greg Hardy playing in the NFL that, that beat women and show no remorse. Well, the San Diego Chargers, who are on their way out of the city of San Diego and moving to greener pastures, potentially in Los Angeles, really showed what a class organization is and to show their appreciation for their players. Their Pro Bowl safety, Eric Weddle, he got fined $10,000 last week. And the reason why he got fined $10,000 instead of going in through the tunnel and into the locker room for halftime, his daughter was performing a dance routine at halftime. So he stood in the tunnel and he watched his daughter dance. And for that, the San Diego Chargers fined him $10,000. Keep it classy, San Diego.
Well, thanks for the trivia,
Unbelievable.
Chip.
Yeah, really.
I mean, you got guys in there that you've got convicted felons, and there's a guy wants to watch his daughter dance in a packed stadium. I don't know. You figure it out.
You would think they'd want to be family friendly, just a little bit,
But
since families watch the games.
His agent said the Chargers usually don't announce those kind of fines, but his agent went ahead and announced it because he thought that it was worth making note of.
Hey, and that's what happens in sports today. Well, thanks for trivia time. On location, we're going to be in a couple weeks, like I was saying, at Atria's PNC Park. So we can't get a close-up on that. That'll be 7:30 to 8:30. They're reviving my Talking Machine Big Mouth Burger, so get your appetite ready. They'll have some other specials. Yeah, it's an honor to have a sandwich named after you that you created, and I eat it, so I recommend it highly. Next week, our first show of the year will be at Hollywood Lanes in Dormont. It's more than just a bowling alley. It's an entertainment complex. They have a huge big screen that they'll have Monday Night Football on. So come on out there. We got great guests from the Meadows, from bodybuilding. We even have Rebecca Egger, who is running as a champion to donate money and also be the model of the year on Jet Setter Magazine, an international magazine, which many big stars have been on. And she's actually a 46-year-old grandmother. And so you have to check it out. I don't mean just look at her photos. She's actually donating money and raising funds for Leukemia Society. So we'll have her on, plus a few other guests, local guests too. So check that out next Monday night, 7:30 to 8:30, Hollywood Lanes. They also have bowling. You can bowl while we're talking. They have specials, so check it out right in the heart of downtown Dormont. And now I got to talk a little bit about Steelers. I only gave you a little tease on what I was thinking, that it's just been a shocking year with some of the talent they have, some of the lack of talent that they do have also. And then don't you play to the whistle. I see all these guys, I know I'm criticizing the defense, but that's what Pittsburgh's strength has been. Even going back to what John said, in the stands in Cleveland and out on the field too. They would beat you up to a pulp, and they would actually finish tackles. Now we have a habit, we come in like a torpedo to try to get fines and concuss somebody. And I guess they're so concussed they don't realize there's 2 arms. Everybody that's ever played football was taught, wrap your arms. I don't hear that. I don't see the coaches even saying, except dancing on the sidelines on their knees like Joey Porter and hugging. So there's a discipline problem and a coaching problem.
Well, I always am a firm believer, and I think I was looking at the grades in the paper yesterday for the Steelers' performance yesterday, and with the exception of D'Angelo Williams' performance in the game, I think everybody had, a D or an F. But, one of the things that I took from watching that game, and I don't know, maybe it's just me, but, you are in a position where you could put yourself in a position where you've got a playoff spot locked up. And it appeared to me that there was no sense of urgency on the offense or the defense. When we played Denver 2 weeks ago, they were 8 for 8 on third downs in the first half. And then in the second half, we were shutting them down on third down.
1 out of 9.
Well, the first drive that the Ravens had, they were 5 for 5 on third downs. I mean, this is basic football. You got to get off the field on third down. And, the Steelers have shown a frighteningly
lack of motivation.
A habit of letting this happen over and over and over again,
Well, here's the thing. John's been a coach. You've coached things. I've coached things. Coaches shouldn't have to fire up a player all the time. You can motivate them, but if they don't see the urgency that you need these wins, I mean, you win out. Your own destiny was set. You'd be in the playoffs.
That's right.
So we didn't. You can't spot any team, especially a team that's one of the worst on defense, and you're giving up big plays, and you're letting them get a big lead. Now you got to come back. Big Ben, did he have an off day? I believe it. He's allowed to have an off day. The interceptions, I don't really like that, but it happens. And when you're throwing to the wrong shoulder, which he rarely does, it all happened on Sunday.
Sure.
So these are things that's hard to overcompensate. And even coming back in the second half, they didn't show that urgency like they should have. That again wasn't there. So there's some problems that run deep there that maybe we'll never find out.
Well, you've got, and I was explaining to John about the schizophrenia that Pittsburgh sports fans have. Last week we were chiseling a statue for the coaching staff and the general manager, and this week everybody's talking about firing Mike Tomlin. Well, I heard an interesting fact today. Of the 32 NFL head coaches, Mike Tomlin is third in winning percentage. The only 2 coaches that are ahead of him are Bill Belichick, number 1, and Mike McCarthy, number 2. It's not bad company to keep. Firing our coach isn't
well,
the problem.
Here's part of the problem. I have not been a big Tomlin fan because he's the only coach in NFL history and almost any sport that I know of that didn't bring any of his assistant coaches or any friends with him, which usually happens. Now some of it's changed, but that's a problem too. Now we're spoiled with our organization. We're set up to win and play what we call Steeler football. Well, what I saw is the Ravens have been getting players to play Steeler football, and that seems to be what's happening. Like, look at Cincinnati. They molded teams to play Steeler football in this era. So they're achieving the success. And like I've been saying for 4 years, they've been rebuilding, and sometimes it catches up to you. Did we win 12 games last year? Yes. It was one of the easiest schedules in history. And they could have actually won 13, and it would have been a different story. So my thing, we can all talk about our emotion of it and what should happen. And yeah, Tomlin's record's good, just like with Big Ben. How many games does he actually win? A lot.
I want to ask John a question here. Being that you played football in an era where it was 3 yards in a cloud of dust, and I remember a comment that Woody Hayes used to make that there's 3 things that could happen when you pass the ball, and 2 of them were bad.
Always.
And it used to always be that there was a reliance on defense to get you into greener pastures. But, what the Steelers have done in their rebuilding process is that they've got the offense stacked. Now, in this do you think a team can actually win a championship in today's NFL with a defense as porous as what the Steelers have been showing at times?
Well, my own opinion as a football coach and a player, I think that fundamentals are absolutely necessary, even in the NFL. It's interesting that you mentioned tackling. I mean,
that's one of my pet peeves.
Listen, wrapping the arms and tackling with the arms is a fundamental of defensive football, and so
we're not seeing it
regularly. We're not seeing it. I see a lot of things happening where fundamentals are not being executed. We're jumping off sides. We're catching balls skillfully, but in many instances, dropping balls. And you just can't win consistently until you can execute fundamentals. Can you win with a defensive game? Yes. I mean, I do think that there's merit to be found in playing aggressive defense.
Sure.
And
it can make up for some inadequacies elsewhere.
Sure.
But and I would defer to your knowledge because you've lived the life. You've been there. And I totally agree with you that what's lacking to today's NFL is fundamental football. And I kind of think that's kind of a multifaceted problem. Some of it created by the NFL Players Association because there's not a lot of practice in pads.
Yes.
So I was always taught that you practice the way you play. Or you play, or you play the way
like
you
you
practice.
practice.
Okay?
That's right.
But I noticed that if you look at the college football game, and where the fundamentals aren't being taught, are there because what I'm seeing, and I see football games, there's nothing I dislike more than watching a football game that's 62 to 58. So what that's telling me is that they're not learning at the ground level, so that when they're getting into the NFL, the tools that they should have already had,
Yes.
they're lacking.
Well, you make a good point there, and I'll say this for college football that players that have the skill set to be extraordinary, you see them every week. I mean, you see great players, great athletes that are making great plays, and you'd like to think that they could migrate into the NFL and have that very same ability to be a playmaker. And yet,
you don't see it.
Many of them don't.
Yeah, and more so as a quarterback than in any other position. You've got Tim Tebow, Heisman Trophy winner. You've got Johnny Manziel, Heisman Trophy winner. You've got RG3, Heisman Trophy winner, and and they are not good NFL quarterbacks.
Yeah, that's
true. They
true.
were great college quarterbacks.
Yeah.
The guys that come up and being fabulous NFL quarterbacks, it's like, huh? I never heard of him before.
Well, sure. How about Osweiler from Denver?
Sure.
I mean, that's a classic example. I really, by the way, I thought that was a great game.
Yeah.
I mean, just looking as an independent bystander.
Sure.
I thought that it was that everybody played from the heart.
They did.
It was a good football game.
That was one of the best Steeler games that I've seen in a long time.
Yeah.
And I was ready to turn it off 3 minutes.
Oh, no, I'm talking about the game last night.
Last night?
Yeah.
Okay, I did.
Denver and Cincinnati.
Right.
Yeah,
I watched it till the end.
He was struggling
Did
at
you?
the beginning.
Yeah, me too.
He was struggling at the beginning, and McCarron looked really good the first 2 drives, and then from what I saw happen in the highlights, it
Fell apart a
deteriorated.
little.
Yeah.
No, it was a good game to watch. I did stay
Yeah,
up to
very
watch it. It was
entertaining.
ebbing and flowing, and I was hoping that Denver would lose, but didn't work that way. Why couldn't the Bungles not bungle it?
Well, if Denver would have lost last night and lost this coming week, and we win, I mean that would have been our second way of getting into the playoffs.
Yes.
Because if Denver loses the 2 and the Chiefs win the last game, they win the division, and then Denver would have been into a tie-break situation with us, which we would have won. But that's off the table now.
Yeah.
Well, getting back to the Steelers, they have to win the way I understand it, and
The Jets have to lose.
the Jets have to lose.
Yep.
That's
There
what
you go.
it looks like. Hey, maybe it'll happen. Maybe there'll be an after Christmas miracle.
Well, you know what? We can only hope. And as Steeler fans, I'll be rooting for my the men in black and gold on Sunday. And the only thing they can do The only thing they have any control over is what
Yes.
happens in Cleveland Stadium Sunday,
Well,
and they need to bring
Folks,
it.
let me just assure you that every Cleveland Browns fan in Cleveland is going to bring their A game to Cleveland to the stadium.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
So they are. It's so very interesting for me to participate as a Steeler fan, and trust me, I
hometown.
am.
No, I've
But
seen it
it's
come out
also-
of you right here on Pittsburgh Sportsline.
Yeah, I mean, I remember the Cleveland Browns and the dominant
How they
force that they were. Yeah, they would take names and and kick ass.
No,
Right.
And
No,
So-
I understand that. Well, my thing, as much as I've talked bad about the coaching, we've had those problems for years. Yes, he's the third winningest coach in how many years? He's still the second youngest coach. So he's actually immature. So I understand that. Steelers a win on Sunday. Whether they get into the playoffs, I got to depend on Buffalo.
yeah,
So that's where we're at.
Yeah.
Hey, I just want to touch a little bit on the Penguins here. Chip started with concussions, like we've talked about. Sidney Crosby hasn't been the same from some of his severe whiplash and concussion incidents and soft tissue injuries that come up. So, the Penguins were still waiting for some consistency, and they lose a game 1-0 where they couldn't score. So the power outage continues for 2 years now.
Well, the problems with the Penguins, and I believe that replacing the coach was the result of a problem, not the cause of the problem. Even though he was part of the problem, he wasn't part of the solution.
But you can't fire a whole team, as you're
You can't
gonna
fire
say.
the players. We can't even trade them because all these people with the highest contracts on the team, they all have no trade clauses.
Right.
in
Or
their
they're hurt.
contracts.
Or they're hurt and injured.
But to be day by day, the transformation that's going to happen is I'm looking at the Penguins today, December 29th. I'm going to look at them again on January 29th, and I'm going to see what do they do, because they've got a lot of work to do, and you're not going to undo everything that was wrong with that team. With the
Well,
snap
you
of
hit
the
on
finger.
one thing that I'm interested in. Like I believe in conspiracies. I believe teams get rid of coaches because the players rebelled. I believe that's what happened with Bylsma. He picked up a good team, inspired him, changed a few things. Then he wouldn't change, so the players decided we got to get rid of him. And that just happened here because we had a coach, should have only been here 1 year. I would have rather seen Tocchet get the job, even though he's been terrible on the power play. You don't have players being consistent. I would like to see Tocchet get in there. He's supposed to be a no-nonsense guy. And I think sometimes you need a tyrant that comes in there to stir them up. Whether it works all the time, who knows? But when you get star players that get punished a little bit once in a while, then some of the other guys start producing.
But see, they had Mike Therrien, who was, I think, the epitome of a no-nonsense coach.
Right.
And he took a hard line with the players, and it worked for a while. Players tired of it. They brought in Bylsma. He was player-friendly. And then all of a sudden, he got tired of it. They brought in another coach. They don't like his system. This whole attitude of, well, if we're not happy with who the coach is, then we're just going to play him out of the town.
Well,
At that point, that's when you got to start replacing players.
no, but it's
that's
traditional.
just my opinion.
Chip, less than 4 years, as you know, for an NHL coach. That's their shelf life. And there's more than one reason. And some of it is players. And it's some of how, you got some of the toughest players in sports on hockey teams. But it doesn't seem like we have a lot of them.
No.
And sometimes we need that.
I think,
and that's part of it. You have a team that's led by Lemieux, who's notorious for saying he doesn't want garage hockey. And you got Burkle, like we've talked about, you've mentioned. Maybe they're a little disgruntled. When you have a disgruntled billionaire, then maybe you're not getting the full attention. They did shop around the team. No, as Chip has said, they're not getting $750 million. They'd be lucky if they get $400 million. But I mean, that's a problem.
Well,
too.
and I think I think the Penguins are a classic example, and you see this more so in baseball than you do in other sports. Long-term contracts for these athletes, I'm totally against them. I think you want to sign an athlete, you want to get the maximum production out of him. Give him a 2 to 3 year contract. Make him play for each of his contracts. When you got him on a 7 or an 8 year contract and they're guaranteed $80 million, what can you do to motivate that guy if he doesn't want to show up? Baseball, they've got the best union in professional sports because these guys sign a 10-year, $350 million contract. They get every penny of it, whether they play or not. Football,
Well, I got to
not
interrupt
so
you on
much.
baseball. I'm a pro-union guy. You know I was a union guy. But there's sometimes you shouldn't have a union taking control of what goes on because it's actually ruined baseball. And now you have teams that are spending – the LA Dodgers paid the largest luxury tax in history. Why would they do that? Because they're getting away with something.
Yeah.
They got all these separate contracts worth billions of dollars, so the revenue's there. Small market teams like us, we got to hustle. I didn't believe their plan. 3 years ago, Chip, I got on the bandwagon. I drank that purple Kool-Aid. I'm still drinking it. I believe they've done the right things, but here's what bothers me. You get some of the teams like Chicago now and what they're doing. Now, will the teams play together? I don't know.
Here's what's happening. Chicago just recently signed in excess of a $2 billion
TV.
private television deal for that team alone.
Yeah.
The St. Louis Cardinals signed a 15-year, $2 billion local television contract. The Dodgers have their own television network. The Yankees have their own television network. This is money that's not being shared among the other teams.
Right.
Now, for example, just to give you, I know we're getting close to the end. The Dodgers payroll last year, $292 million. They didn't win a championship. Now, in money that they have out, the players that they are paying, that they are not on their roster, that they are paying is in excess of $900 million.
Whoa.
When you've got billions coming
That's
in,
my point.
you can
You can-
do that,
Yeah.
Sure.
but that doesn't guarantee you success consistently. And
Well, baseball is one of the most consistent sports when you have a draft. Most of the players don't make it to the major leagues.
they say 10% of the players that make the minor leagues make the big show.
Right. So, I mean, that's what fans from other sports don't understand. So there's a lot of things that just don't work out no matter what your scouts do. So if you have a great scouting system, if you're pulling from foreign countries, the Caribbean area, you can get these nuggets, as Chip likes to call them. You'll pull a nugget out and you get a good player, but then you got to try to sign them early. Like McCutcheon's the rarest guy that I ever met that signed a $51 million contract before his time, and he produced. And Kutch has continued to produce. And I just want to go on record here before the end of the year that they should sign him to another contract to lock him up because he is that important and he does inspire other players and he does great things in the community too. That's the type of class act you want.
And you know what? In this professional sports environment that we live in, a man that's getting paid $51 million is underpaid. Somebody pinch me. I must be dreaming.
Entertainment. Oh, wait, your skin's too tight. Entertainment.
$51 million and he's underpaid.
Why couldn't you
God
have been?
bless him.
Why couldn't you have been a left-handed pitcher?
I'm telling you.
That would have done it. You should have
Yeah.
been a left-handed pitcher.
Yeah, I'd probably still be pitching.
Yeah, if you could throw that deuce.
Be like Satchel Paige.
Yeah.
Pitched into his 60s.
Definitely. No doubt. Well, it's been a very interesting show. I want to thank John for coming out to see us on last second. Come all the way from, aren't you in Cannonsburg?
Cannonsburg, yes. Mm-hmm.
That's a journey to Bethel Park. We appreciate it. Not too far.
It's my pleasure. This has been a fun evening.
And it's a little different in our on-location show, as you can see.
Yes.
So, and that's why I told you. And
A lot less background noise.
yeah. And Chip, it's been a pleasure this year to have you on the
Alan,
show.
man, it's
I appreciate
another
it.
year under our belt, and you know what? 2016 is going to be a good one.
There's no doubt.
you go.
I'm eternally optimistic, and we'll find out more about the Steelers, the Penguins, and whatever team in Pittsburgh that you're for. And if you watch this show each week, thank you very much. I know a lot of you do. And Chief, thanks for eating dinner with us. We appreciate that. And all of our friends out there in the community, keep on watching and keep liking our page. If you like my page, Pittsburgh Sportsline, you know I'll like yours within reason. Smoking Jim likes everything, and stop putting that porno out there because the site's getting all screwed up. So those are just some things we have to work about, here. And thanks to Bethel Park for all the things that they've done to provide us with a venue here that we can talk about sports. Hopefully we're teaching you a few things, maybe how not to act or not be as sarcastic as I am. But thanks again, folks, and have a happy new year and be Joey strong.